Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
I got one of these.
Yeah.
Have you tried it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
What'd you think?
I think it's good. I think it's especially, I'm using it because, I find my neck gets all kind of cranked out, sometimes sleeping and all that. And I think it's just like somebody said, you're probably not moving as much, so your neck's not challenged like, when you're young, like you're moving all the time playing sports. So having some sort of specific training that's not risky, I guess, is probably pretty good. Like having somebody push on your neck or doing manual stuff is always a little tricky. So I got it for me, and my son's going to use it for his neck strengthening and stuff. So
yeah, I could probably use it. I probably need it. My neck's definitely been feeling a little like achy when I'm doing this, even like right now in here.
Yeah.
I've been throwing in a lot more just a lot more elasticity work lately. Because anytime I get away from it, my body feels awful. It's the one part of my training I don't think can ever change. I've got to be jumping, I got to be throwing, I got to be doing some type of A skips or falling starts or something like that. Otherwise, my body just starts locking up on me. It's pretty amazing how so many other things can change in the styles of your training, but that's like the one consistent. And I wouldn't even say like stretching. I categorize stretching as important. Like I'm not, I get more of a response off of doing that stuff than actual stretching, right? Like just static, like holding stretches. So, it's interesting. It's the one thing in my life as we're aging, listen, I feel like my body composition is better. I feel like my strength is as good as it's ever been. Obviously certain lifts may not be, but I'm just not working on that. As the one area that you feel like starts diminishing first is that.
Yeah, we did a workout yesterday. Actually, the whole family did it. We went to a friend of mine's gym, and he has a sprint track, and we were doing that. And yeah, at the end of that workout, I almost felt like, I had a couple of cups of coffee. Like it just kind of, everything was kind of clear, like the sky was brighter and all that. And I don't necessarily get that after an aerobic workout or a longer run, or it's just a different feeling. Like you're saying, it's tapping into a different part of your brain.
Yeah, totally agree. I was down in Kentucky this week with my son. We were watching the University of Louisville, which was pretty awesome. They got an incredible baseball program. And it was fun because my son got to mess around with some of the, minor league players that were leaving for camp that were just down in the facility practicing. So they called him in because through a friend of mine, they invited him in to just kind of mess around and show him some stuff. It was really great. The university, obviously, they couldn't work with my son. That would be, but like these guys going to Colorado Rockies organization, Atlanta Braves, Mets, all that stuff. It was fun because he got to go in and he got to, move and see what training was like. And then we went to Illinois, and when I got out of the car, so, you're 4.5 hours in a car, you're 2 hours in a flight the night before, your body's just tight, right? And the one thing I've been craving in my training is that extended period of time. I wouldn't even say like 10 minutes, like, oh, stretch for 10. No, like 30, 40 minutes of like foam rolling, a dynamic warm-up, elasticity work, I call it, like a jump, throw, carry, some type of movement where you're, flossing the body and getting it to move with some speed. And, it's funny because you start doing a broad jump in the first set, you're like the first rep, you're like, oh, okay, I feel like there's like bands connected to me. And then by the third set, you're able to explode a little bit more and land softly. And then you feel the aches in your body begin to diminish. And I really think it's the area of training as we age, most adults want to avoid because they think, well, I'm not a kid anymore. But the reality is you got to keep doing it.
Yeah, that is use it or lose it kind of thing, right? And I think people just assume like, if I look at people that I went to high school with now, I think a lot of people just think, oh, you're just getting old, right? And
Right.
I was kind of saying to my wife, we're out running with the kids yesterday at this training session, and I'm like, we're in our 50s and we're like sprinting with kids. Doesn't that seem odd to you? Like,
But it's
it's not
also
a
a testament to you and what you've created a bit. And I think it's the example we need to be setting, right? It's adults are, they're being told zone 2 and they're being told, slow, steady state or no ballistics or, those things. And I'm not telling you on day one to, if you're 40 or 50 years old and you haven't done that stuff in a couple of decades, I'm not telling you to start doing, depth jumps for distance. It's like, I'm not telling you to go into an all out, 100%, 100-meter sprint, but it really, and it takes some time to get it back, right? Like think
yeah.
about it. It's not like you start doing it and your body feels crappy. And I think the one thing that's positive is as you're doing it and you're kind of getting into your sets, you feel yourself loosening up, right? But then you come back in the next session and you almost feel like you're repeating exactly what you went through. It takes months, I think, to be able to start, jumping in there and being like, all right, my body is feeling springy. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think we benefit from the fact that we never really stopped doing it. We
Yeah.
might have do it a little less. And so, you have that tendon capacity, like I'm saying, because we all have friends, and you must have friends too, who, oh, what happened? Oh, I was playing basketball or I was doing this, which they don't do frequently, and they ruptured their Achilles. Like I have at least a dozen friends who've had that happen. And most of them, I would say, are sporadic trainers or sports, doing it sporadically, or they don't do much and they stepped off the curb funny or did something, but it's not people like you and me who are training pretty much every day that are having these problems. So you got to figure there's a disuse sort of syndrome out there where people just aren't challenging their body and their brain, and so they get into these predicaments where they don't have the preparedness or readiness. They step funny and boom, it just goes. So I'm always trying to wonder, I'm every time I go out, I'm aware that I'm in my 50s and that could happen just based on my age. But at the same time, I'm pretty confident, because I've been doing it, that it's not going to happen, right? And I'm not doing it excessively either. I think that's the other point.
Yeah, I mean, how much time are you spending a week?
I mean, on those types of activities, probably twice a week.
All right, that's not a lot.
No, but it is consistent, right? Like twice a week, we're doing drills and but that doesn't count like the sprints we're doing on the treadmill. That's another day or something, or tempo running. So we're doing, something every day. It's just the intensity of like what you would classify as plyometric or elastic is probably twice a week.
Right.
So
Right.
but we're filling in the gaps too. So we're always challenging those tendons and ligaments and all that. And then like you always talk about, we're probably a lot better on the nutritional side too, in terms of making sure we get all those different things in our body that help with those structures. So
Yeah, I mean, the one constant that we've been adding in since Drive was, we have a systematic approach to how our training structured. Like it was always foam rolling. It was always, breath work, dynamic warm up, you can kind of structure it in there. Maybe like, I don't know, we would maybe see some of the members focusing on like one breathing drill just to get everything primed. And then you go into your dynamic warm up. And then from there, after the dynamic warm up or practice, like I would call it a lot of practice, because what you're going to work on or I'm going to work on might be different things. It's like, what do we need to improve upon? Like for me, it's always been hips. It's always been thoracic rotation, thoracic extension, shoulder mobility, getting in there and hitting maybe, 3 or 4 movements that are going to pretty much take care of that. And then from there, we would go into either a jump throw carry day, which would be like you're choosing some type of a jump, some type of med ball throw, and some type of a carry. Pretty simple, right? Like one day if we went, we did a lateral bound, the next day we would do something more linear. The next day we might, if it was more forward, we might do something more vertical, right? Like, so we would try and be a bit more rotational, a bit dynamic there. We would maybe 2 days of that, and then maybe another 2 days of some type of, elasticity work, skips, high knees, lateral shuffles, some type of, and that's what I love the motorless treadmill for a drive, is we would get on there and do, 15-second tempos, and maybe in time we would start almost factoring our way down to where, you're getting on there for 6-7 seconds and trying to do a burst, but not taxing it. It's not like you're doing 30 sets of it, right? You're going in 4 sets, 5 sets, 6 sets, 8 sets, just to get the body to fire and get the body to be loose. And 10 out of 10 times, we would always go into the workout feeling better, right? Just, it would almost, in my eyes, it was almost like a perfect warm up. Like body temperature was up, body was feeling a bit dynamic, it was flossed. And, I think if we were to hit PRs, it were on those days where, sometimes, you're rushing, you're trying to get in, you're trying to get out. I'm not gonna tell you it never happened where you're like, all right, quick foam roll, couple quick dynamic, circuits, maybe 1 to 2, and let's start warming up on our sets if someone's pressed for time. But now I almost feel like the most important part of the workouts are those beginning phases, right? And then getting into the strength, I would almost now cut down the strength portion of it, right? Like, all right, supposed to do 5 by 5. Let's go in today. Let's hit 2 to 3 by 5, right? It's like, let's shorten that up. That beginning phase of the workout is something where I know for a fact it's the most important. Once you start feeling shitty, right? Once you start moving slower, there is such a big change in mindset. There's just such a big change in how we approach our day and not having that bounce in our step. I mean, it is, there's nothing worse when your body feels like crap, right? It's like, all right, well, getting out of the car after a 3-hour ride, and you're like, oh, like back is killing. It's a shitty feeling. And that's really become the goal of mine, is to eliminate that. I feel like if I can eliminate feeling like that, everything else falls into place.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, like weightlifting doesn't make me feel as good as it used to. It's, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I did so much of it for such a long period of time. But I remember I was talking to a bunch of people, but these people that use like Kaiser equipment, the pneumatic stuff, and they were saying that, I think it was Pat Davidson was saying that even like barbell stuff where you're like, pressing and you get to extension, there's almost like a jarring motion when you get there, and it's harder on your joints. And I do feel that. So, using stuff like some of the band stuff has been useful, because I just feel like I can't sustain the same type of lifting behavior that I used to have. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel good. I guess
No. I agree that there is a point where with too much volume gets thrown in there, there's a cost of doing business. I mean, people were bashing machines for years, and I always knew there was a place there. Yeah. I always understood the importance of it. Pat and I trained for, I think we were on like a 12 to 16 week phase together. We were not doing a lot of free weights.
Yeah.
And it honestly got me out of my comfort zone a bit. I mean, the major free weight lifts that we were doing was a reverse safety bar squat where the bar horns were almost going back. And that was to kind of keep you a bit more vertical. We were lifting in ollie shoes. So we were, and it wasn't forcing, you weren't having to force your arms up, right? Which is, I think, a big part of a problem with the front squat, or the back squat, is utilizing that extension, a big problem with that. So, between that and the RDL, which he put a lot of value into, obviously some dumbbell rowing, but everything else was machines. It was pull downs, it was machine chest presses, and this was last year, and it really was, my body felt incredible. Yeah. It felt awesome. But we keep coming back to this free weight approach, like it far surpasses everything else. I went in for a DEXA scan It was interesting. I probably do 1 to 2 a year. I have a friend of mine who owns a facility in Syosset, which is only like 5-6 minutes from here. And I went in for a DEXA scan before I started training with my friend Arash, who was a Olympia competitor, Arnold Classic competitor. I think he finished like second in Classic Physique one year before his injuries. But I remember going in, doing my DEXA, going and training with Arash for 6 months. And I have the data on paper, 6 months. I came back in and looked at my body composition. And the guy looked at me and said, "This is crazy." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Your upper body has not changed an inkling." And I laughed. I go, "My lower body." He goes, "You gained 8 pounds of muscle in your legs in 6 months." And I was like, holy shit. And the thing that the biggest change in my training in that 6 months period of time was my lower body training. We did not free squat. We did not front squat. We would throw in, it was all machines because that's what Arash needed to train due to his back and a neck injury. It just wasn't, free weights weren't working. We made a deal. It was every leg workout, it was one unilateral movement. So it would be like a front foot elevated split squat, a rear foot elevated split squat, a front loaded split squat, a walking lunge, right? You know what I'm saying? Something unilateral that forced us to stabilize. And we were finishing with it a lot. All the work in the beginning was high rep. So, and I was always a power guy with my legs. With me, it was always, fine, tens, we would do some tens, but fives, threes, doubles, singles. And when I started mixing in 20s, we started bumping reps up, finishing exercises, 30s, 50s, 100 reps. It was the biggest area of my training that changed the most. And my legs absolutely blew up. It was extraordinary. Again, my body felt incredible. So I think a lot of times you'll see bodybuilders revert to machines because they're in pain, right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, and I don't even know if it's more about the stability. I think a lot of times with squatting, we're forcing, we're forcing something in that doesn't fit, right? It's like, all right, well, shoulder issues, mid-back issues, low back issues, hip issues, lacking in dorsiflexion. This can all contribute to us, I don't want to say failing, but us loading dysfunction. And when you do that and you load dysfunction, then you start exposing areas. Oh, low back starting. Oh, that partially torn labrum or that cam I have in my hip is being exposed. And I think a lot of times machines is allowing you that level to be able to put your foot on the gas and that level of freedom. So my question is do you turn around and focus mainly on the stuff that we're talking about? And then for the strength portion, it's getting that hypertrophy work that's going to allow you to perform these movements with a high level of success.
Yeah. Right? You saw that graph that I put up from Charlie Francis where it had motor unit.
I loved it.
Right. And the interesting thing is that on the left side of the graph, you have, Olympic lifts and sprints, and they're kind of the high motor unit threshold activities. And then as you go down, bench press and, deadlift and all that move to the right. And then you get like arm curls and wrist curls are at the far right. So it was interesting whenever I put that up, all the people who are Olympic lifting people are like, oh yeah, Olympic lifting is great. It's just like sprinting. And I think the problem is that it competes with sprinting. So it's kind of a bad thing if you're doing both at a high level, because they're kind of battling each other, where what you're saying makes perfect sense to me. And I've seen this in the NFL too, where people will kind of poo-poo like machine work for NFL players. But if they're practicing and playing, they're challenging all of that proprioceptive stuff and multi-joint stuff all the time. So maybe they need a break, right? But they still need to challenge themselves generally, right? And have a load, but not just the same kind of load that they're practicing and playing with. So I think that makes a lot of sense in my
Well, I think so. And it's like, all right, listen, that's what's changed, right? Like when you were 20, there were all year long, you could just handle it. You could just put your foot on the gas and just go, 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 go. Now what I have found.
But that doesn't mean it's right though, right? Would you agree?
No, it's not right.
Yeah.
It's not right, right? It's clearly not. You're able to recover and you're able to bounce back. What happens 5, 10, 15 years down the road, different story. Like, looking at my training partner, Tone, for years, he's high volume, high volume, high volume, high volume. And it was never backing off. Now, there was a time where he got through it. Now he's talking about, well, I know my body. I'm like, okay, you know your body, right? And he's got to spend sets and sets and sets and sets. Light, heavier, 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 heavier. He's sometimes going 7, 8 warm-up sets where it's just incredibly light just to get his body moving to where he gets to a point where he can move. Now, he's got to do that now because I believe what he put his body through 20, 25, 30 years ago, right? But, it's the thing I've seen the most, the area that I've seen, because I hate the line, oh, well, we're all getting older. Of course we are. We're all getting older. What's the area that has changed the most on me? Aesthetically, honestly, I'm getting leaner and I'm still putting on muscle. I feel it. Like I still feel strong. I'm improving areas from a mobility standpoint. I'm more in tune with my body. I can connect to each movement, each muscle a bit differently. Like I get it. The thing that has changed a lot on me is the recovery piece of it, right? It's you have to be thoughtful about, overstaying your welcome. I had a 2-hour hockey game last night and I did legs today. I'm in there today. I'm a little fried. Now I'm doing this. It's not smart, but I'm doing it because I have another month where the outdoor rink is open. So we're trying to play as much as possible. And then after that, we play 1 day a week. Indoors, no problem. 1 day a week, my body's going to feel great. Now, right now, with the training, with the air travel, maybe, with air travel, not getting enough calories, maybe you're losing a meal, your body starts becoming affected. And I can't tell you how many people that I speak to that they're like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm training. Why am I exhausted? And I'm like, well, I had you measure your calories because I want to have an idea of what's going on.
Yeah.
From a macronutrient standpoint, if we are not, you cannot measure. You can go through your whole life not measuring. I know people, Frank Seppi, one of my buddies, he doesn't measure. He knows roughly what each meal should look like. The guy's 240 pounds. He's got the body of an Adonis. It's fantastic. But he's also in a controlled environment. He's not traveling like some of my people 30, 35, 40 weeks a year. So when you're putting yourself under that type of stress and you're training, if you turn around one day and you're eating healthy and you just miss one meal and you suddenly reduce 500 calories, I'm just making that number up, right? Whatever. 500 calories, 5 meals a day, 2,500 calories, probably around what, the range of what most people are probably eating if they're lucky. I mean, I have to go a lot more than that. But if they miss just one meal there, one day, and you're dropping out of 2,000 calories, and then you do that another 1 or 2 days in a row, your energy level is going to shit's going to hit the fan. You're going to feel like crap. You're going to be sitting there scratching your head going, why am I so gassed during my workouts? Like we're forgetting calories. The definition of a calorie is what? It's energy. It's energy. So when people are trying to go low calorie, energy, you're going to reduce that level of energy. You're going to reduce that level of recovery. I hate it when I hear coaches turn around and go, oh, well, on a day when you are not as active, reduce your calories. Okay. So I'm training 6 days a week, or Ryan Reynolds is training 6 days a week. So on that 7th day, and he's training hard, and he's traveling, and he's running businesses, and he's focusing on his family, and he's on Zoom calls all day, and he's go, 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 go. So on that one day where it's his opportunity to recover, we're going to remove energy from his body? Why? No, I'm asking you why. Like, why would someone tell someone else to do that? Why would a qualified nutritionist tell someone else to do that? That it doesn't make, well, because they want to make body composition changes. Body composition changes will take place with consistency and discipline. I've increased calories on people, and I've seen body composition changes take place. I've seen body fat changes drop, food quality, changing the types of energy you're putting into your body. but there's a lot of things that we're not looking at that can hinder performance.
How old is Frank?
51.
Really? Wow. Has he mentioned to you any changes in the way he works out as he's aged?
100%. We talked about it today. We just finished we were shooting content at Bev's. I mean, I'll get there maybe one day a week. We'll shoot some content there. What he was talking about was there's now in him, there's this piece of fear that he never had when he was training. Like when you start feeling like that knees flaring up, when you were much younger, oh, it's fine. Now it's like, all right, I got to watch this. This is very real. You know, like this is, I had a hockey game last night. I played for 2 hours last night. 2 hour shifts on, off, one on, one off, one on, one off. I looked at my, it was fun. I looked at my, I never care about how many calories I burn, but I looked at my Apple Watch last night. It said I burned like almost 1,100 calories in that period of time. So when I'm in there today and we're doing pendulum squats today, my left quad has been a little strained lately, which is tied into my left knee. So I've been lifting and I have to be aware of it. I'm doing extra rolling. I got a knee sleeve on. It's getting better. It's getting better. It's getting better, especially since I haven't been loading as much on free squatting. The machines have been helping me out. And in my head, where I would have taken that next jump and just find a way to push through it, I went as heavy as I can go and knowing that, all right, I'm going to get this. Where a lot in the past, I would go into sets scared. Like, I don't know if I'm going to get this or not. Like, there's a chance I'm not coming up with this rep. I never have a problem training that way. You know, when you are training for bodybuilding, that's part of it at times, not always, at times. If I was training to be an athlete, different story, different conversation. But I think what Frank was claiming he has now is there is this level of fear I think fear is a bad word. I think awareness.
Awareness. Yeah, I was going to say.
I think it's more awareness. Like, okay, this is like, he looked today and he's like, all right, I did a jump on the RDL and he's been having some back issues. And he's like, all right, I'm going up. I said, no, you're not. And he just looked at me and he just nodded. And we do that for each other at times. Like, you just know this isn't the right move. But no matter what, we leave there feeling successful. We leave there feeling like, all right, we feel better. We did something good for ourselves. But yeah,
it's not just about totals and numbers, right? There's other qualities you guys are looking at.
No, definitely not. I mean, I got in there today about a half an hour early. I was foam rolling, dynamic warm up, and I went through, your whole, call what you want, your warm up series. A skips, high knee, shuffles, probably did about a dozen falling starts, walking back, taking my time, every set a little looser, a little looser, a little looser. The last 2 days, actually Saturday was a lot more jump throw carry. Sunday I traveled, I took off. Monday yesterday was jump throw carry. Hockey last night. So today we were like, okay, stay away from jump throw carry. Just get some movement in, really low grade, low intensity. But then we've gotten the workout and the body felt good. I mean, for the exception of this thing that I'm healing right now, which is going to get there. But, there is a place, we got on this because of the machine conversation. There is a place, for it. But I also believe that, if you only train machines and you don't do the things we're talking about, there's going to be, there could be issues.
Yeah, and it's just shifting proportions, I would think, right? It's like, maybe it was 60-40, 60 free versus 40 weight machines. Now it's 40-60 or whatever. And I think I've just kind of shift proportions.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Well, like 60% of your work would have been like free weights versus 40% machines. Now I would say for me, I'm not using machines, but I'm using like bands and different things. It's probably like, I'd say it's 30-70. And some of that shift is I'm relying, like you said, on drills, medicine ball stuff, and I'm pushing more into those types of activities, some body weight stuff. And I might do a couple of core lifts with the barbell, like deadlift, bench, military press or something, and some dumbbells as well. But yeah, I can't do the collection of exercises I used to do. I kind of look at it and I'm like, no, I did 2. That's good.
It's also like, what else do you have in your life, right? So
Yeah.
you're doing that and you're playing sports and on the plane and, you know, swinging a golf club a few days a week. Like there's wear and tear. Like there's always a term I've been using for 20 years. There was always carryover. I remember when I was taught about squatting and deadlifting, I understood that even though the movements were different, they were very similar in the areas of the body that are engaging and the areas of the body that are stabilizing and even the areas of the body that are working. Like, yeah, well, does the deadlift still work the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes, the core? Absolutely. Does it work the lats? Absolutely. If you don't think the barbell squat is working the lats, then you've never barbell squatted, because there's a level of tension going on there that when you see someone squatting the right way, when I look at my buddy Jordan Shallow or Marcus Leone squatting, they're ripping that bar down their back. And when you go and you put your hand on their lats while they're warming up, which, you know, I think everyone should do to actually get an understanding of tension. You could, I feel like you could shoot them with a 22 and it's going to bounce off them. Like there is an incredible amount of tension. So my whole methodology when I was training throughout years was, if we were doing legs on a Monday and then we're deadlifting or doing back or pull on a Thursday, it's almost like you're coming back in and doing legs again. That low back is taking a hammering. You're still training. Those are 2 full body lifts right there. There is carryover in those lifts. When you're doing your military pressing, you can't tell me that you're not working any chest or triceps. Like these areas are working. Core is getting crushed all week long from these lifts. A pull-up is a moving plank. I mean, I learned that from Charlie Weingroff. Right? If it's done the right way and it's done, you know, the way that we like to teach it, a pull-up is a moving plank. You're creating tension in that lift. So these movements, all of them, have carryover. If you want to talk about a bodybuilding split, these movements have carryover. I'm on there even doing a machine squat today, a pendulum squat. Like I have video with my shoulders, my arms. Like I am literally trying to pull. I'm trying to create tension. I'm trying to stabilize. These are tension techniques. So, you know, I think sometimes we forget that even though we're not, you know, I don't know with you might be more full bodies, or with my athletes, young athletes, like I really, with a young athlete, it's either a full body workout or maybe an upper or lower. I think full bodies are the way to go with young athletes. But when we're training a little bit more with bodybuilders or people, yeah, we need to get some of that isolation in there. You need to tear down that muscle fiber. Like you need to create that hypertrophy. And you got to think about carryover, because there's so much that the body is demanding when you're swinging a golf club or playing ice hockey or going out for a 5-mile run. There's cost of doing business. There's areas of the body that are taking a hammering.
Yeah, there was a guy that I was helping out, just mobility stuff, but he was an Olympic weightlifter, and I think his total, like he was a heavyweight or super heavyweight, and I think his totals were, for clean and jerk, he was at least approaching 500 pounds. And I get, you know, most of his pressing was overhead, right? And then some football players were doing 225 pounds for max reps. Right. And he says, "Oh, I've never done that." And I said, "Oh, okay." Well, he said, "Can I try?" And he did it. He put up 35 reps.
On the bench?
On the bench, yeah, at 225.
He never benched.
He never benched. He just overhead presses, right? For clean and jerk.
Oh, he's overhead pressing?
Yeah.
225?
No. He did bench 225.
Oh,
but God. all he's ever done was overhead pressing for clean and jerk.
That's what I'm talking about. There's carryover.
Yeah.
You don't have to be sitting there isolating the muscle group or doing that lift. I mean, that's what Louis Simmons talked about with the conjugate method, right? I don't know if you ever read, went through all the West Side Barbell stuff, but when you get guys ready for squatting, I mean, he never had them free back squat, or very rarely. I mean, it was more of like a wide stance, you know, box squat, or a wide stance safety squat to a box, or good mornings. He was big into good mornings. And he would train these lifts. And then when it got to competition time, they started incorporating in, you know, the squat more for technique. And they would, you know, obviously between that and the amount of drugs guys were on, they were smashing world records. But it is fascinating. I think we tend to forget something like a sprint. Right? I was watching something on Marion Jones last night, and something like a sprint. Like you look at these sprinters' bodies, in there doing bench presses. Are they in there back squatting? And like maybe, but probably not a lot. Like I would imagine that a lot of their work is just stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. Look at their physiques, right? I'm sure they're not spending hours doing bicep curls. And if you look at every, guy on the 100, like they probably have better arms than I do. It's like, think about that. Think about how much carryover, like something like sprinting is having for, even hypertrophy, right?
Yeah, I remember talking to her 2002, and I was at, she played basketball, right? And so she's about 5'10". And I said, "Oh, you can dunk the basketball?" She's like, "Oh yeah, I could dunk in high school." And I'm like, "Holy shit."
She was an extraordinary athlete. I mean, what was your opinion on, listen, she lied in the federal courts, which is why if you don't know the story, if someone doesn't know the story, that's why she went to prison. I think she went to prison for 6 months, but there were things, I watched this documentary on her last night. There's things I didn't know. Like she got thrown into solitary confinement for 48 days.
Yeah, because she got in a fight or something, right?
Got into a fight, but she had to stay in her cell for 23 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like obviously you can't lie in the courts. Like you're going to get into trouble.
There's a good story about that because, I remember, we were talking about things you could do, like if you're in a hotel and you can't go to the track or something. And Charlie Francis is like, well, you could do running high knees on the spot in your hotel room, right? Maybe you just put down like a yoga mat or something just to cushion it a bit more because of the repetition, right? And in that documentary, I think one of the things she did is she took her mattress, put it on the ground in the prison cell, and was just doing running high knees on the spot. And so I'm like, wow, yeah, that carried over pretty good, right? That recommendation. So
makes sense, right? It makes sense. I just, even coming from someone like me, I think we're putting too much value into the strength training portions of, when I say strength training, or the hypertrophy portions of, our training. I think especially, even with youth especially, we got to keep the body moving the way that we moved when we were kids. Like we got to, or at least trying to reestablish that. I just think that most people are thinking that they have to, have this workout from, Derek Hansen written out and periodized and all this stuff. And the reality is, that's what I love about your stuff. It's so simple, right? It's 10, 15 minutes a day, just getting your body to move with some speed, with some efficiency, and just adding in that my favorite word, and that's consistency. It's going to pay dividends.
yeah, because I'm just finishing the Bo Jackson biography, the recent one here.
How was that?
Oh, it's fantastic, right? Because he hated lifting weights. But you could see that when he was young, he was, very impoverished upbringing, right? And he would just go play and throw rocks or jump out off of trees, and that was just his way to occupy his energy, right? And he was just he's physically gifted, but there must be something to do with the environment and the conditions that put him in a position to do all these activities. And the one chapter I'm reading now, they're talking about that game against the Seattle Mariners where I think it was like a triple into the corner, and Harold Reynolds was rounding the bases, and he threw him out from 300 plus feet or whatever it was, and everybody's still shocked, right? They were looking at the film going, I can't believe he'd made that throw.
Yeah, Harold Reynolds was even blown away. Like you see him on the video and he was like,
yeah,
what are you talking about? How was I thrown out? Like
yeah. He didn't believe it. He said he watched it 15 times until he was like, I guess I was out, right?
Yeah,
Well, where does that come from? Where does that, because he didn't like training. That's the thing.
He's also like, I think he's also, the guy, in my eyes, when you ask who's the greatest athlete you've ever seen, right? And I'm going to break down why I think he was. Some people like Muhammad Ali. I've heard people say Allen Iverson. I've heard people say Michael Jordan, LeBron James,
Deion Sanders.
Right. The reason why I think Bo is the greatest athlete I've ever seen, let's put aside the fact that he was a two-sport professional athlete, right? Okay. He thrived. He excelled in baseball. and in football. He made the Pro Bowl in football. He did, right?
I think he did make the Pro Bowl. Yeah.
He made the Pro Bowl in football, and he made the All-Star game in baseball.
Yeah. And won the MVP in the All-Star game.
Yeah. So let's put aside the fact that he excelled in 2 sports. Like Jordan didn't do that. Iverson didn't do that. Deion, I think Deion definitely did it in football. I mean, he wasn't as good of a baseball player, but he was still a phenomenal baseball player. The thing that Bo had over all of them was, one, he might have been the fastest, right? But arguably, I mean, if you had him and Deion race, I don't know who's winning, but the thing Bo probably weighed.
And he was 225 or 230.
Right, so Bo probably weighed 50 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
But his power and strength. So when you combine all those attributes, skill in more than one sport, power, strength, speed. I'm sorry, like LeBron James wasn't incline bench pressing 500 pounds. He wasn't squatting what, Bo did. He can't run the 40 and what Bo ran the 40 in. Couldn't. So, and he wasn't multi-sport. He wasn't able to go pick up these games and just boom. Like when you watch Bo Knows, when you watch this documentary, they were talking about how he just went into practice and he started hitting balls over the fence. Like it just was easy. He was talking about, well, I don't know why coaches want to tire you out. He's kind of
practice,
right? In practice, but he would go in and he would train when he'd have to train, and he would just do things that no one else can do in the gym. So Muhammad Ali wasn't doing that. Right? It wasn't. Like, we forget sometimes, I think, talking about who the most monumental in their sport was. I think that's one thing. Like, who had the biggest effect in their sport? Okay, you could talk Tiger, maybe, right? You could talk Michael. You could start talking about these athletes that literally stood out in their sport. That's not what I'm talking about. An athlete, most athletic, power, strength, speed, endurance, the ability to adapt, who could do things on the field that was physically, like, the guy. How many people do you know could do a standing backflip standing in a pool full of water up to their waist? I know, maybe I've seen someone jump. I've seen people jump out of the pool. But in a pool full of water up to your waist, doing a standing backflip out of it, I've never heard of anyone doing that. So when you look at the best athletes, and you want to, I think it could be that argument that he is a.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just all the, like, I don't know how hard it is to hit a 500+ foot home run, but it sounded like it was easy. Like,
there's a handful of guys in the major leagues that can do it now, just a handful. Granted, the ball's wound tighter now. The pitchers are throwing a lot harder now.
Yeah.
Think about that also.
Yeah.
Back when he was playing in the, what was it, more the late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, late 80s. Yeah.
Late 80s, early 90s. You probably at that time, I would think you had 3 to 5 pitchers throwing triple digits. Now, every single major league team has at least 3 guys hitting triple digits. At least. Because you're going to have, all right, 1 or 2 starters that are capable of doing it. Your closer definitely does it. Right? So right there is 3. So that's a very worst case scenario. So when the ball's coming with that velocity, it's leaving.
Yeah.
It's even a lot faster. Do that now with the technology. I don't know how bad. I mean, I just went to the Louisville Slugger factory to see how the bats are being made. Right. And which is kind of cool, because when you got in there, I got to hold Babe Ruth's bat. I got to hold Johnny Bench's bat, Roberto Clemente's, Ken Griffey Jr.'s.
Is there much difference in the way they're made?
Oh my God. Yeah. Like every bat, every bat felt completely different. Babe Ruth's bat was like a freaking, God, it was like a tree trunk. Couldn't hit 80-mile-an-hour pitch with it. But also, pitch was coming in slower. There weren't guys back then throwing 100 miles an hour. They might have been. one guy in the whole league, like maybe able to hit that, or so they think he hit it, because they didn't have, what were the radar guns, right? They were throwing, I think, what was it, Bob Feller? They had him throwing against a moving car, and that's how they gauged it. You watch that movie Fastball, it breaks it down.
Really?
It's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. And they all come with the conclusion. I don't want to blow it for you, but they all a Hall of Fame table full of players, all in the Hall of Fame, all claim that they all mentioned the same name. Who is the fastest thrower? And they all said the same name. It's fascinating. But yeah, the bats, going through the process on how the bats are made today, players can go down, they could pick out the type of wood they want to use. An actual block of wood. And they are able to actually shave down that block of wood in, I think, 48 seconds to basically become that bat. There's a specific machine that it rolls the wood onto, and out of nowhere it just kind of slowly glides down and it turns this block of wood into the bat that they're going to be using. And then, it's got to go through this whole process, and it's fascinating. But I mean, are the bats now made differently than the bats 60, 70, 80 years ago? Yeah, I would think so. Right? It's the process is a lot different. So are they going to be made stronger? Are they going to be made better? Are those balls made stronger? Are they made better? Hitting a 500-foot home run now, I think, is probably a bit easier than back when Bo was playing, and then, but then you're also getting into performance. I doubt, Bo on performance enhancing substances, the guy didn't even work out. I just think he's an anomaly.
How hard is it to snap a bat over your knee?
I think 99% of the major leagues can't do it. I think you got a handful of guys that can do it. Like, if I put a wooden bat in your hand and I said, all right, you'd be like, no way, I'd break my leg. I wouldn't try it.
No.
I would never try it. It actually, a couple of times I was like messing around doing it, and I'm like, this scares me. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation. But yeah, so that's why I would definitely put him in that category in my opinion.
Yeah. So that's why, the whole point of that conversation was, what is the value of strength training when there's all these other things you can do that will still give you the strength, result. You can still get hypertrophy from doing these other things, right? So I just think people have to diversify the training and find different ways to get to the same, result.
I agree. Start jumping, start doing some tempos. You and I have that program coming out. Actually, we have to, I think Mel or Rob's going to reach out to you. We have to clean up some of the formatting, and we have to change.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that, but I'm excited to launch that. Hopefully soon, but that's even going to be something that I'm going to do. Like, I'm just going to get on that with the strength piece of it. I'll add a strength piece of it.
The treadmill has been a blessing because in the past, in the winter, we used to go run out on asphalt or concrete or find a hill or something. And I was talking to my wife. I'm like, remember when we used to go run that hill and it was like raining sideways into our face? Yep. And now we get creative with the treadmill. And because she rolled her ankle pretty badly before Christmas, and the treadmill doesn't create any pain, because I think you kind of slide down the deck and it's rolling, so you have less horizontal eccentric sort of stress. Whereas if she runs outside too quickly, she feels it. So yeah, it's just up and down.
Treadmill is almost like giving a little bit, right? Like, you can see it flex a little bit, and I like that. I actually find it more joint friendly, and
absolutely,
I did find it more challenging to run on because of that pull, because of how you got to get that posterior chain to engage. But yeah, I'm excited to show everyone the program that we have going off hopefully soon.
Yeah.